advocates. That's what we are. The 3 lawyers, the 4 lawyers, the 5 lawyers, however many of us will actually speak to you, we're advocates. Our job is to place the evidence in the light most favorable to our position. We'll both do that. We'll all do that.
The reason the judge is sitting there is a search for the truth. The reason lawyers are supposed to be in a courtroom is a search for the truth. You obviously have a duty to search for the truth.
Lawrence.
Your Honor, we haven't seen him and haven't heard.
The plaintiffs disclosed that Ms. had a conversation with Barbara Kane, who is an investigator with Bowman. That is the source of this purported statement about 16 or 17 cases. That is the only source.
Unless counsel has a different source, then it should not come in, shouldn't be mentioned in opening statement, shouldn't be mentioned in the testimony of any witness, because the source itself is a breach of confidence. I'm asking for disclosure. If counsel has another source, we should have been told a long time ago, but certainly by today. If he says there's another source, let's deal with it so we don't mistry the case, Your Honor.
If you're asking me to disclose it, Larry had a conversation with Dr. Ron. Dr. Ron told him there were 16 or 17 cases.
You know what bothers me is that my profession is being rotted out from the inside out because of character and integrity.
Oh, Cassis, that was his name.
Cassis, yeah, that's the surgeon. Is that recorder still on?
Yes.
Turn it off for me.
Okay.
Larry is not here, presumably will not testify. But you will learn that there was a Maricopa County Sheriff's Office investigation as a result of a complaint made by the plaintiff here, Ms. Very thorough investigation. Everybody interviewed. You'll find out what they determined.
Something bad happened in that operating room that resulted in the death of a woman, and no one's even talked to one of the witnesses that were there. Why weren't any of the witnesses ever questioned? The eyewitnesses?
Because we have not gotten to it yet.
So what appears
Let me say this again. This is not the only case Detective Ward had to work on.
Right, but it appears to be a possible
sorry
murder.
that it is not moving at a pace at which you are comfortable.
Nobody's even talked to the witnesses in 7 months. The newspaper will hear about it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There was also an autopsy done by the medical examiner. Everybody has the autopsy report. You will undoubtedly hear from the Maricopa medical examiner. So there aren't any secrets. There's nothing hidden. They know what happened.
The allegation is that Dr. Zarmer should not have used nitroprusside because the allegation is that the patient had an abnormal liver and that the nitroprusside gave a release of what is called cyanide and poisoned the patient. During the surgery, the surgeon who threw an incision in the abdomen and incisions in both legs has to tunnel under the skin to create tunnels for those artery bypass or those grafts to go through. In the process of doing that, the surgeon created accidentally a hole in the main vein that goes back up to the patient's heart and encountered massive bleeding. And it took that surgeon, because he's trying to fix that vein through that tunnel without ability to actually see it, it took him almost 45 minutes to stop that bleeding.
So here's the big lie, the time of the bad cut. First report was 5 p.m. Dr. Cassis in his typed report done 2 days after the surgery. This is Dr. Cassis' operative report. So he does all this stuff, carries on with the operation, carries on with the operation, carries on with the operation, does just about completes the operation. The next step, tunneling of the right limb. There's that tunneling. Unfortunately, during this maneuver, we accidentally hit the right iliac vein, creating 1 centimeter diameter perforation. No, not at 5 o'clock. It was at 3:15. And she lost all of her blood. Here's his report. The perforation was noticed immediately. Control of the bleeding point was easily accomplished with digital pressure, his fingers. That's not true either. She bled to death. 5,000 cc's of blood. Anyway, it's at the end of the operation, about 5 o'clock. Then Dr. Cassis, at his deposition, he's looking at the altered, forged anesthesia record, It's missing the big blood pressure drop when it really happened. He says it must have been at 2:15 because it was right before the pressure dropped. Here's his deposition. Although, see, they waited almost 2 years to talk to the guy. The reason for that, my friends, my guess is it happens when we see this noted drop in blood pressure. There he's describing how it took. So it's sometime between 2:15 and 2:30. That's Dr. Cassis. Okay, here's when Dr. Cassis is saying it happened, because he sees, oh, it couldn't have happened at 5 o'clock. It had to happen right here. There's the big drop in blood pressure. Then Dr. Zarmer at his deposition, and he looked at everything and said, no, it's right before I ordered more blood. Kevin Zarmer, he's the anesthesiologist. He's the lawyer saying the doctor said it's 2:15. Did he really? That seems early. That would be before the heparin, before the aorta clamp, which doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. Could have been. It couldn't have been there. 3:15 to 3:20, because that's when he ordered more blood right after that. 3:15 to 3:20. There we go. And that's the truth. That's when it really did happen. But you can see 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That's when it happened. The day after surgery, this dipped way down. This has been changed, altered, forged. That's illegal. Because there's no, like Cassis said, it had to be right there, because if she loses all her blood pressure is going to plummet. That's when it happened. And notice, blood pressure goes up and down normally. Everybody's does, through the surgery. When she lost all of her blood, the sentinel event it's called, she almost died, the blood pressure was perfect. Okay, well that's impossible. So Cassis is lying, the anesthesiologist, Dr. Zarmer's lying, and all of the lawyers say, no, it happened when he was tunneling the leg over here. Right leg open, left leg open. This is when he was working on the legs. That's why at first he said 5. Everyone's lying about everything. But then at his trial, he said to the jury, well, that's for you, you'll hear it, that's for you to determine. Then that's called a lie by omission. That's perjury, Doc. But all the lawyers, every one of them on all sides, say it was while he was tunneling the leg. So you can see the jury has no clue, and no one would tell the jury. And they wouldn't let me tell the jury the truth.
After the surgery, and you're going to hear about it, the patient is sent into something called ICU. Dr. Ron comes on board to care for the patient. During the course of surgery, as counsel pointed out in their many opening statements, very technical surgery to tunnel down to attempt to put grafts on the leg. Dr. Cassis cut ligated neck, iliac vein.
There's the lady doctor we hired to do the autopsy, not the medical examiner. Lawyers just lie and lie and lie and lie to the jury. Anyway, in the distal inferior vena cava, near the takeoff of the iliac vein, is a pledget, and that's a patch. He cut, I talked to her, she has the piece still in her office. He cut the vena cava at 3:15 while he was cutting through the aorta. That's how she bled to death. If he would have done what he said, and he even said it was just a little one and I stopped it with my fingers, little tiny puncture. No, it was a 1-inch incision in the vena cava. They all just lie and lie and lie.
The patient was transported to ICU, and a nurse in ICU calls him up and says, "Doctor, you've got to come in to manage the respirator." And the ICU nurse says, "This lady's about to die. You've got to do a lot more than just manage a respirator." I can tell you Dr. Run did not look at the anesthesiology record. Dr. Zarmer's expert says the same thing my expert says. That if that record is accurate, there is no evidence of hemorrhagic shock. No evidence of inadequate flow, inadequate oxygen. And the reason you can tell that is if the record is accurate. The blood pressure of this patient during surgery, as charted by Dr. Zarmer, remains well above normal.